when I choose some of the employees who work in my practice, we tend to choose people who want to be future like doctors and future leaders. So we
Mhm.
know that they're not going to stay with us forever. And we want
Yeah.
them to kind of go and grow and get to those next steps.
Yeah, because then you get, right, like top talent wants to work for top leaders. Okay, I'm just tickled. I always am tickled when I have the chance to interview and spend any more extra time with my amazing clients. So I'm thrilled to have Dr. Camysha Wright with us today. And Dr. Wright, as we all call her in good company, let's see, you have been working with me. You did How to CEO, you did Empathic CEO because you are one. And
Mhm.
now you've been in the SAGE program since we started. So you are the OG of SAGEs, right? You and Danielle, right? You're the two.
Perception, yeah.
So, but you're also, a very accomplished physician, which we will talk about, and recently very accomplished author, which we will talk about, and have several other distinctions in your profession. And of course, nothing is stopping you. I know you have a lot more ambition and things you want to do in the world. So I just love when I get a sliver of time extra with you because your brain is gorgeous and so are you. So tell us, Dr. Wright, who you are. Tell us about you.
Thank you, Kris. That was such an amazing introduction, and ditto for you. I mean, you've been such a blessing. I call you like my angel in disguise.
Oh,
Working with you and the way that you've opened up my mind and the way that my mindset has changed has been amazing. But okay, so I'm Dr. Camysha Wright, and I'm a board certified otorhinolaryngologist, or ENT, for short.
thank you. Thank you for those of us who don't know what that is. And I've been working with you for 4 years. I still can't say it. Odo, I still can't. So ENT
I like
works.
saying it in Spanish better, actually, like
Oh,
otorhinolaryngologia. I love it.
oh, say it again.
Otorhinolaryngologia
Oh, yes. Very
sounds
fancy.
better. But,
Sounds very sophisticated. Yeah.
but basically just ENT. And so we look at the ears to nose and the throat. And I have my own practice for going on 10 years now. I'm in a larger group. So it's kind of interesting the way that we have it organized, because we have our own individual practices, but then we operate under like a larger like group,
Mhm.
number or whatever, for like negotiated with insurances and things like that. So we get a nice blend where we can kind of have our own business, but then also like have a nice niche where we can, do what we like.
Yeah. You have some freedom in there.
Some freedom in there, and then also you can talk to your colleagues and have some, conversations going on there.
Mhm.
So I have that for a private practice. I'm also the allergy director for that group. So there's like over 90 different ENTs in our group. And whenever they have an allergy issue, they are able to either figure it out on their own or kind of like, send a little, conversation out to me, and we try and figure out some type of answer to kind of fix their current
Yeah. You're
problems.
the expert. And you tell us you're in Florida, right?
I am in Florida. Yes,
So
South Florida.
you run that, you are in that role for 90 other physicians across the state of Florida, yeah?
Across the state of Florida, from Miami all the way up to like the Panama City, like destination,
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
north to south. Hmm.
Mhm. So if you live in Florida and you have really tricky allergy issues,
Yeah.
if you see a different doctor, they're likely consulting with Dr. Wright. Or you should just go see Dr. Wright because your practice is in what, Fort Lauderdale or Port Lucie or Fort Lucie? I can never remember.
It's in Plantation, which is,
Plantation.
yeah, it's just west of Fort Lauderdale. So
Okay.
like, about half an hour from there.
Okay.
Um, you're saying Port St. Lucie because I do have some like ties up in Port St. Lucie
That's
as
what I thought. I'm like, I know there's all the play and Florida's like California. It's like everything is that near Miami, right? Like people are always saying to me,
yes.
"Oh, do you live near San Francisco?" I'm like, yeah, about 2 hours. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. Yeah. Okay. So, and what?
Um, Yeah, I mean, as far as like for medicine, I've been very blessed. So,
Mm,
my practice, I've had my own individual practice. I also try and do like a lot of like advocacy. So I was the most recent past president for the Florida Society of Otolaryngologists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Currently, I'm on like the board of governors, so that so basically for all the different otolaryngologists, across the country, we'll have meetings and so forth and talk about the current issues and concepts.
Mm-hmm.
The annual meeting is going to be down here in Miami, so I'm kind of one of like the little, poster child, like advertising for it and trying to
Mm-hmm.
really kind of get Florida, some info, get our name out there for like all the other people, all the other otolaryngologists from across the country and
Mm-hmm.
the world who are going to come down and visit us and learn more about what we're doing here.
Yeah, a lot of advocacy, right, for your profession and the needs that your doctors have, right, through that association and the work you do.
Absolutely. I mean, because there's always so many things changing on the healthcare front. And
Mm-hmm.
so like one of the things that, is very important to me is obviously like educating not only like myself, but like my patients and then other doctors so that we can
Mm-hmm.
understand like, changes that can affect our businesses and also like the way that we manage our patients.
Mm-hmm.
And insurance plays
Absolutely.
a huge role, unfortunately, with
I'm
the way we manage
sure. Yeah,
patients.
that's an ongoing battle. I know we have several doctor clients in the different programs that I run, and that's a whole other conversation for the impact that things are having on physicians in general, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be like another day.
So a couple of years ago, you said out loud, I want to write a book.
Yes.
And so then you did. And I remember when we were in Rhode Island and AI just started coming out, and you were sitting up in your room.
Yes.
We were at the Sage Retreat, and you were like, look at these pictures that, right? And I don't think that this was actually one of the ones that we saw, but I just remember it was so fun to like realize, like, wow, you can do such cool stuff by defining what you wanted. And I know you worked on this book when we were all together. So Breathe Easy is an absolutely beautiful book, and it's an incredible title, right? For an ENT allergist specialist to write, because so much, as you have taught me, so much about our health and our well-being is rooted in our ability or our lack of ability to breathe, right?
So true. I mean,
Yeah.
I I I wrote the book primarily because I was getting a lot of, you start out as a doctor, you see your patients, and you see a lot of like the same type of questions, every day people will say, well, I'm not sure, like my sinuses are acting up, and it could be their sinuses, or it could be an allergy, or it could be something else. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was just a lot of confusion there. And I noted that I was saying the same thing over and over again. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, hey, well, how can I get this information out to people in a
Mm-hmm.
different format?
Mm-hmm.
And many times, like many doctors will tell you, like, or if you go to the doctor, we say so many things to you, it's hard to remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to
Mm-hmm.
have like a resource that you could just go to just reference a quick,
Mm-hmm.
thing here or a quick thing there, I thought would be useful.
It's
So that's
so
kind of how it
useful.
started it. Mhm.
Yeah, and you have such a even in conversation, because obviously when we're all together, people ask you things because you're a doctor.
Yeah.
It's the way it works. And you just have a way of making things make sense. And there's a simplicity to it. There's a complexity to what you do. But as a patient or as a layman, you really help explain why there could be a host of symptoms. Like one of the things I know you and I have talked about, like I get my throat gets kind of hoarse in the mornings. Mm.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
it's because I have creamer, real cream I have actual cream in my creamer
Yeah.
milk. And but I'm not willing to change that. Right. Because but I know I have an allergy. I totally have an allergy,
Why
but
you
I will not give it up.
discuss that? That's one of the chapters in the book too. We talk about food allergies
Mhm.
in that, because you're right, because we don't always put two and two together as
No,
far as like how, different triggers could cause different symptoms.
no. Okay. This is hysterical. I don't think I've told you this. So I've been married to my husband for 27 years.
Yeah.
Um, and we've been together for 29. This year it'll be 30. And about 3 years ago, this man loves peanut butter. He
Yeah.
puts peanut butter on apples. He eats nuts. he'll eat a handful of nuts, peanuts, almonds, cashews,
Amazing. Yeah.
all of it, right? Protein things with peanut butter, right? All the things.
Yeah.
And every time he has it, he starts coughing. Every time.
Every
And
single. Yeah.
I'm like, 3 years ago, I'm like, do you have an allergy to peanuts and nuts? Look at every time. And now it's hysterical because every night he has a Reese's peanut butter cup for
Mhm.
dessert. Every night he starts coughing. And I'm like, okay, we probably should keep an EpiPen because one of these days that thing's going to kick you over the edge. But it's just so insidious. There's so many things in our lives, right? And you talk also about like there's the external ones, and then there's what that does sort of in your system, right? Like when you have inflammation from allergies, how does that affect how you breathe, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that just for the layman listeners?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book exactly how you described it. I tried to make it very simple. I
Mm-hmm.
actually had one of my doctor colleagues like review it for me. He goes, "This is way too simple." I'm like, "It's not written for you. It's written for
Right.
patients and for like the normal person."
Yes.
But one of the things that is a key avenue that I delve into it with the book is the fact that our airway is unified.
Mm.
When you have inflammation, say like in your nose or your upper airway, it can actually affect more distal parts or like distant parts of your body, like your lungs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's like a baseline of inflammation, you breathe in, say, a certain allergen, let's just say dust, and it goes into your nose and you breathe it in, and then these little allergy cells come and seize that. They're like, I don't like that. Obviously, it's trying to attack me, and they like explode, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
way, and release
Mm-hmm.
all of these like chemicals that cause your body to have a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
That reaction causes the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You can get congestion or postnasal drip. But while it can happen in your nose, sometimes those same chemicals can be, stimulated in other parts of your body. And so
Mm-hmm.
some people with allergies can have other conditions like asthma,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, the nasal congestion can cause you
Mm-hmm.
to get some severe nasal blockage in your nose, which can lead to
Mm-hmm.
other problems like just, nasal congestion or like sleep apnea being a contributing factor to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while snoring and being congested isn't like the end of the world, having something serious like sleep apnea could lead to more serious conditions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and that for sure, I got diagnosed with apnea, I'm 4 or 5 years in, and I was young. I was in my
Hmm.
early, late 40s, I guess, when I got diagnosed. And I have a whole family who has it. But that has changed my life to be able to literally to breathe, right? You don't realize when you have apnea and you don't know you don't have it. Did I just say that right? You don't realize that there's, a good chunk of time that you're not breathing.
Yeah.
And for a lot of women I know who are kind of roughly in our age group, right? There's a lot of women who don't sleep well. And
Hmm.
I know there's a host of reasons why that could be happening, but one of the things I always tell people is like, I would request a sleep study because you don't know. And not everybody who snores has apnea, right?
Right.
Vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I have a snoring chapter, and I was like, hey, just because you're snoring, I mean, that could be annoying. But we want to make sure that we rule out just the annoying snoring from something
Hmm.
serious.
Right.
Apnea is actually you're holding your breath for 10 seconds. You
Hmm.
know, we have this thing called apnea hypopnea index that we look at on our sleep study. And apnea is when you're holding your breath. Hypopnea is when you're like doing really shallow breathing. So you're breathing
Mm.
not enough where you're getting good air or oxygen. And both of those can have, really terrible effects on your body.
Hmm.
Over time, you're not getting enough, blood flow with good oxygenation to your brain, to your heart, to
Hmm.
all the different parts of your body that need it. And you
Hmm.
can have a higher risk for having a stroke. You can have a
Hmm.
higher risk for having a heart attack. Um,
Hmm.
I've had patients who had, family members undiagnosed and they die in their sleep.
Yeah.
And friends of mine who 50 stroke. I'm like, this is crazy. And
Yeah.
when things like that were happening, I'm like, we need to really get the word out that people
Hmm.
know about this because it's really a, an epidemic that can be fixed.
I mean, I know that wasn't the point of really this podcast, but I do want to say, like, I think it's really important. And because I also, I'm very open about it. Listen, I don't love that I have it, but I like to breathe and I like to breathe easy. And I have BiPAP, so I breathe very well because my
Very
BiPAP
good.
is
Yeah.
heaven. But the amount of people now that I know who have apnea, who you wouldn't think they do. They're not severely overweight. They're not, right. There's all these sort of they're not 100-year-old man. Like there's these stereotypes with it that have really, I think, affected how we help people to get diagnosed. And if it were up to me, I would, once people get to be a certain age, I would just do a sleep study because it has to mitigate the expense on the tail end of heart disease, AFib, right?
Yes.
Like all the other things that we know happen. My mom had undiagnosed apnea until she was in her mid 70s. And it's too late. She had to get a pacemaker. She has AFib, right?
Yes.
So the damage had been done.
Right.
So anyway, I just think your book, for all of you listening, we take for granted that we breathe
Mhm.
until we can't.
Until
Right. Until we get a cold, even, or a sinus infection, or, some sort of flare up or pneumonia or whatever. And it's not all. And in fact, I would bet you would say the majority of the issues that we face are not because of a virus. It's other things that are going on in either in the environment or your body's reaction to it.
yeah.
And
We
this,
talk about that. Yeah. During
go
like my
ahead.
first chapter, I go into like, I wanted to start out with just having everyone understand like, hey, you're stuffy. So what does this mean? And I try to do a differentiation. Was it could be allergies, it could be a viral infection, or it could be a sinus infection. A
Mhm,
sinus infection can be caused by a virus,
mhm,
all in sinus infection is just inflammation in the sinus cavities, the little hollow areas of your face that,
mhm,
cause it to, get good air and so forth.
mhm.
And so if you have a sinus infection for like that started out as a virus, but then it didn't clear up within about 7 to 10 days, well, then you could get a secondary bacterial infection. And that's why the doctors like myself will give you an antibiotic.
Mhm.
But if you have like a sinus infection that's lasted forever, like for months, then that could be either be a chronic sinus infection or you could have a confounding issue where you have allergies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
just continuing to perpetuate
yes,
inflammation. And
the
yeah,
inflammation in your
absolutely.
body.
Yeah. I just think that we're so all about, the more physicians I have in my world, the more I realize how little we know, right? And WebMD and Google are not really the best resources because most of the time you're going to find out that you're going to die. If you Google any symptom up, it's always back to like, well, so you
Yeah.
should all go get Breathe Easy because this is like, it really is like a layman's. It's, I love even how I'm going to show the inside because there's like pictures. Let's see if I can get to a couple, right? Hello, I know I just saw a few. Where are you? Pictures. Well, that was useful. There's
Yeah.
pictures and it's really written. There you go. It's written for you and me people,
Yeah.
not other physician people. And I think it's a great book to have in your house. If you have kids, if you also have your own issues, it's kind of your little guide to, I keep feeling this way. I wonder what's happening. This is happening to me. I can't deal with this. I can't taste things right now. What's that about? And so I think Dr. Wright has really built a very useful and simple household resource. And I think also what's so great is that you really are available. So if you have issues as a person and you are not been able to resolve those, I don't know what the way things are in states and all the way things happen, but if you want to go to Florida and see Dr. Wright, you probably should because she's a freaking expert and she's really good at what she does. And I'm a fan of experts.
Thank you, Kris.
Right.
Yes,
I just want to always know who's the expert.
doors are open for everyone, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's what I mean. I would go there. When I was in Florida, you took care of me. So
Yeah.
I'm in. Like it'll work for me. Yeah. I like to have a doctor in every state. Why not? That's kind of handy. Um, Okay, so let's just touch a little bit too on you and the fact that you are also this, you're an accomplished physician, an accomplished expert in your field, now published author, soon to be another one. I know you have another idea in the back of your head that you're working on.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think it takes to be a woman in the world that you're in, especially as a physician, and lead well?
I learned a lot from your program because I mean, as a physician, I would say that we get a lot of training about medicine, about how to save a life, which is also very important, but
Mhm,
you don't get, any like really direct guidance on how to run a business, on
mhm,
how to lead your team.
mhm,
So I actually learned a lot from doing your program. I learned how to, set up, an actual like guideline and get the rules and regulations in place and how to set my expectations and be able to hold people to like those expectations.
mhm.
So that is actually something I actually learned after being in medicine. So I mean, not to plug you, but I would say probably if they don't know that, they should probably look you up too, to try and get some
Hey,
tips on.
listen, I'll take it. But what do you think though was the switch though? Because you really are quite effective as a leader, Camysha. I mean, you're a very approachable woman in general, but you've built, an organization. It's hard to build as a practitioner to find other people who can also do practitioner work, and also take good care of your patients and have an administrative team that does that as well. And so what do you think you needed to get, like what was the gap that you walked over that you would say, this is the thing probably for me that has made leading and running a team, not just a business,
Yes.
a little bit easier for you?
I feel like it's more so I had to really kind of get my intentions clear. Like what were my goals? Like what do I really
Mhm,
want to accomplish? Like how do I want this like practice and business to look like and how do I want my team to look like?
mhm,
I would start for, we wanted to practice, medicine with grace and empathy and also be innovative. So we do that in everything. We try and actually have the best customer service and get back to people as much as possible.
mhm,
It's funny, after I wrote the book Breathe Easy, I'm like, I want to change my motto so that our patients can breathe easy and any part of our practice
mhm,
health, but just from them calling us up, I don't got to worry about it. I can breathe easier because I'm dealing with Dr. Wright and her team.
mhm,
And
mhm,
we just had to really be intentional about that and
mhm,
and then have that kind of push us in everything that we do. It's
mhm,
scheduling an appointment to following up on patients to, all the customer service and then leading our team. I'm very intentional with how I try and like have be respectful for my employees. And then
mhm,
they are also, we're not like a family, but we're very well, I guess well oiled, I'll
mhm,
just say, so that we all kind of know our parts, our roles, and
mhm.
we work together well.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? So you set the intention, you set the direction, you set the vibe, right? It's like an ecosystem. You built it on purpose. Whereas what is true for most of us when we start a business, we don't do it on purpose because we're just trying to get, in your case, patients. I'm just trying to build a practice or trying to make it my practice, right? And now it becomes simpler. And that's what I've watched with you over the few years here is even though you've had transition in your team,
Oh yeah.
um, the process after you've done it once, right? If you have to replace positions again, which we always will all have to do,
Hmm.
always,
Hmm.
is that it's not as emotional, it's not as angsty, it's more clear, it moves faster
Yeah.
because now you know what you're looking for and you know what you don't want.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's also part of the intentionality too. I think I spoke with you like so when I choose some of the employees who work in my practice, we tend to choose people who want to be future like doctors and future leaders. So we
Mhm.
know that they're not going to stay with us forever, and we want
Yeah.
them to kind of go and grow and get to those next steps. So we have a lot of change and a lot of turnover
Mm-hmm.
intentionally because they also care about their work and they're
Mm-hmm.
like this, they really want to learn, so they really want to help people and try to be strong and impress you. So,
Mm-hmm.
it really works to our favor, but in that regard, I know there's always going to be a little bit of change, but I'm used to it
Yeah.
now. I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you get, right, like top talent wants to work for top leaders.
Yeah.
And so if you get that as you build that reputation, which you're already obviously doing in your industry, right? There's
Mhm.
going to be really great young talent that wants to come work with you and learn from you. And
Mhm.
why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah.
Right? Because eventually one of those people will be the one that you could probably sell your business to.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so I think it's such a, we talked about at the SAGE gathering that I just did in Sonoma, we talked about developing proteges
Yeah.
instead of just hiring team members.
Mhm.
As founders, I think that's a valuable perspective. And there's one other thing I want to call out that you said to everybody listening, and that's that you talked about building a business that focused on empathy and grace
Yeah.
and innovation, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And um, there's a lot of um, jibber jabber in the world that empathy and grace are soft skills. They're not as valuable, right? And I think in your world as doctors, this is true in so many other industries, the 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 value is placed on the science.
Hmm.
And yes, that matters. But what we know matters equally is being able to create a culture where both patients and people that work there feel good.
Yes.
You get,
So important. So
yeah,
important.
yeah.
Because I mean, with any, avenue of like, where people are working, I mean, healthcare, it could be a lot of people burn out. A lot of people get, frustrated or get tired. So you have to like intentionally set a culture where, it can be a place where people can thrive. And
Yep.
that's really what I wanted to do when
Yeah.
we started this practice.
Yeah. And I think the longer, that we're getting more and more into era where that's expected by team members more so than it used to be. And so that's one of the edges that I believe women have. If you learn how to honor that, honor empathy, honor grace, hold space for that, but also still have clear expectations, clear standards, and you don't have fear around holding people to the agreements that they made
Hmm.
when they said yes to working with you, right?
So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were going to talk to young women doctors who want to also have their own practice, what is the best piece of advice you would give them in terms of the leadership of their business, not necessarily the development of the practice?
Hmm. I mean, I'm very blessed. I actually have the opportunity to speak to some of our,
Mhm.
colleagues in that role. I'm a mentor. I get to teach with residents and medical students and such. So, I mean, usually when I'm approached with that, I tell them like, one of the things first and foremost is to figure out like your own mind, figure out like what it is that what you need and what you want, because
Mhm.
sometimes you may feel like everyone is like screwing this up or screwing this up, and it's just the way you're thinking about it or what have you.
Mhm.
So I try and have them first focus on themselves, get support for themselves. I've learned that from you because many times we try and do everything
Mhm.
and we don't
Mhm.
support ourselves. And once
Mhm.
you're more clear with who you are and what you want, then you can kind of have an idea about what will get you there, like what kind of team will get you there and how you can
Mhm.
lead them because you know what you want and what will make you happy. It's going to be different for everyone. Everyone's not going to be as empathetic as me. They maybe have a different personality, but you
Yeah,
just have to know yourself and then you can
exactly.
go from there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the story I like to tell, right? About the client that you and I both know well, who also lives in Florida, who can be a little cheeky. And she was frustrated because people she was hiring were like too sensitive.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, you have to tell people who you are. You have to say, this is what it's like here. We're a little sarcastic. We're a little cheeky. We kind of banter a lot. And you
Mhm.
get that clear, you're going to get the right people in with you. So it's not just that you have to be empathetic and graceful, like,
Yeah.
no, but just be clear
Yeah.
so that you're building a team that is representative of your values, right? I love that. And I think the more we can give women that freedom to know it's okay. It doesn't have to look like Bob and Jim and John's business.
Yeah.
It can
It's
look
okay
like
to you.
yours.
Yes.
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 But I
And
just,
unapologetic about that, because we always like
yes.
being saying sorry, or like, just for being who you are as a person. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was, I was thinking about it the other day, and it really is true that women have really only been in the kind of leadership role that you're in, that I'm in, that, even within corporations since let's just call it the late 60s, early 70s in
Sure.
mass, right? And even
Yeah.
still, we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that the models we look at to learn from are not necessarily easy to emulate, because they just don't align with how we kind of act and want to be in the world. And so I think that the more of us that share our stories and do our work and gain prominence, both as leaders and experts, we create other pathways, other options for so many other women. So I just, it's an honor to know you. You're such an understated genius, I think, is what I would say about you. When you talk to Camysha, she's just is, as you find her here on this video and this podcast, she is lovely. You're lovely and easy and friendly, and yet you are like this high achieving, high producing, ambitious and innovative woman. And I know every time I meet up with you every few months, I'm like, what are we gonna do now? And there's always something
I
cooking in
know there
there.
is. I'm like,
Yeah. So
we could
that's
do
when
a
I say,
research study.
yeah, you could do another thing if you want, but you have to tell me how you're going to support it if you do, because it can't be all you, right?
I think the 2 research studies are good.
Yeah, we'll stick with that for now before we open up a new business or write another book or take on a new fight.
Program, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it's fabulous. Okay, so where do people find you? I think I know you have a social presence, and then what's your website and all the things.
Yeah. So my website is thewrightent.com. So it's the right with a W.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually find links to all of my socials there, as well as like a link to my book. It's available on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
either paperback or Kindle or even audio version.
Look at you.
I know.
I'm going to we'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes for the
Sure.
podcast.
Sure.
But for now, please go follow Camysha, buy her book, get the book for yourself, get the book for anyone you know who struggles with airway or just breathing in general, other issues. Great gift for new moms, I think, for who are, about to embark on all of the baby problems that all of
Yeah.
us are terrified about. So anyway, I think there's a lot of great uses for having your book on your desk or in your bookshelf. So thank you for
So
writing it. Yeah. All right,
thank you
love.
for inviting me for this. I really had a great time. And it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, love. Nice to see you. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.